Good evening. Tonight is Monday, February 3rd, and we do have a quorum, so I will call this meeting to order. The first order of business is agenda approval. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda for tonight's board meeting?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
We will vote to approve our agenda. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Tonight's agenda is approved. Dr. Stanley, will you please review tonight's agenda for us and the community?
Absolutely. Tonight we're going to have excellence in action, and we're very excited about that. We could have hearing from members of the public, and then you have a consent agenda. We have a few discussion items, including looking at some budgets, curriculum, our school calendars. For action, we're going to, and there are some policies that will be discussed. And then for action, we're looking at some bargaining agreements, policy review, and mutual termination of employment agreement. And then there will be leadership and committee updates and superintendent updates, and we'll be done.
Great, thank you. Before we move into excellence in action, I would like to take a moment to make some remarks about one of our board members. This was supposed to happen last month, but this particular board member was ill and was not at our meeting. So Erica, on behalf of the Edina School Board and Edina Public Schools, I want to take a moment to recognize and thank our outgoing board chair, Erica Allenberg, for her remarkable service as Edina School Board Chair over the past 5 years. Erica, your tenure as chair has been nothing short of extraordinary. Your leadership has guided us through some pivotal moments in our district, hiring, welcoming, and onboarding a new superintendent, navigating the unprecedented challenges of public education during a global pandemic, and spearheading the creation and implementation of our district's ambitious strategic plan. Under your steady hand, we've witnessed tremendous growth across the district, and your commitment to our students, staff, and community has been evident every step of the way. You have served as a pragmatic, strategic, and thoughtful leader, always balancing the needs of our stakeholders while keeping the best interests of our students at the forefront. Your work has been instrumental in shaping the success of our district, and your dedication has left a lasting impact. While you are stepping back from the role of chair and have left some very big shoes to fill, we are grateful that your expertise and voice will continue to serve our board and our district. On behalf of everyone here tonight, including your husband and the mayor, thank you for your tireless service, your wisdom, and your unwavering passion for our schools. All right, moving on to Excellence in Action. Tonight's Excellence in Action will feature, you can come on up. Will feature Edina High School's Sheltered Creative Writing class, which brought its self-authored books to Countryside to share with young readers. This class is the first of its kind at the high school, and EL teacher Amanda Schutz. This project received support from Sarah Swenson, the high school media. Katie and Amanda has Vicente Zapata with them this evening. Welcome.
Nice. All right, thank you for having us. We have some slides to share. How does that work? Oh, there we go. Okay, great. Yeah. So we'd like to talk a little bit tonight about, yes, the creative writing class that you mentioned, and now we're in second semester. So we're also moving into our sheltered speech class. And I'd love to, should we have you introduce the speech or the thing, and then Vicente will talk?
Sure. Why don't we could introduce ourselves
Great
first. Yeah. I'm Kate Bohr. I'm an English teacher at Edina High School. In addition to teaching the sheltered speech and creative writing, I also teach a 9th grade survey class, English survey.
I'm Amanda Schutz. I am a EL teacher. I was previously a peer coach for the district for a while. I also co-teach Survey 9 and physical earth science.
Sure.
My name is Vicente. I'm from Chile. I'm in 11th grade. I'm the student.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so the reason behind the class, so public speaking and creative writing are offered to all students at Edina High School, but this is the first time that it's been offered to students with a level 1 or 2 English. And this is now much more accessible to all students at the high school, which has been excellent to be able to serve all the students that are interested in taking both creative writing and public speaking.
One of the things we like to talk about is that what we say is far more important than how we say it, meaning that we don't need to strive for perfection the first time. Our first goal is just to say what we need to say and be understood, and then to grow from there.
Yeah, so with that in mind, creative writing, it was excellent to get to see from the very beginning where students were in their writing journey, both in English and their home language, and throughout the semester. And then after getting that foundation started with writing, it was just a natural segue into public speaking as well. So one of the things that we like to celebrate in our class is the idea that being multilingual is an asset that we nurture in our classroom, and we celebrate all cultures in our class. So the little blurb up at the top are class demographics. We have over 10 different countries represented in our classroom with Spanish speakers, Ukrainian speakers, Russian speakers, and a Somali speaker as well. Should we go through and read the quotes from kids?
I think this one especially, this is written today by Mikita, who's in the photo there. And he said, "Our class is special because we speak multiple languages. Our English level is much improved. Thanks for this class. Because when you can speak English and your home language in the same class, it helps to learn English much faster. And I feel comfortable in this class." So we wanted, and I don't think we'll play the video for time purposes, but it is available. Oh, okay, just kidding, here we go. So if you look closely, you'll see, this is truly really quick, but you'll see every single person in the room, except for us actually, is speaking. And they're speaking in multiple languages. So you'll hear Spanish, you'll hear English, you'll hear Ukrainian, Russian, probably won't hear the Somali because it's just one speaker. And they're smiling. And what this shows is that we really embrace the idea of speaking and writing first in one's home language and then moving into English, because it helps the process of thinking and critical thinking in that way. And so this is what translanguaging is. These are little bullet points that, just so you understand what translanguaging is, that Kate and I have created in this classroom. It's a research-based practice that engages multiple language to process the content. We communicate using multiple languages. Kate and I both speak a level of Spanish. We are not, actually Kate's score's pretty good, right?
Yeah.
But we
Un poco. Gracias, Vicente.
Yeah. And we support students who are bilingual. We increase students' comprehension, empower them, and allow students to read via home languages, encourage students to collaborate using their home language, display home languages. It's just a huge part of our classroom community. These are opportunities. They're strategically paired. Oftentimes we'll say, okay, get together with someone whose home language is similar to yours, and then we might say, now get together with someone whose home language is not the same as yours. And we can strategically use those strategies. One of the things I want to mention about learning language is that we need to learn language at a word level, a sentence level, and then the discourse level. And when we move into more of the standards, you'll see how that differs from the standard or the mainstream creative writing classes versus our sheltered class, and how we examine the state standards and how we meet those.
And with those state standards in mind, the sheltered creative writing, sheltered public speaking class follow and meet all of the same Minnesota standards that the general, or the, what would you call it, like the general level of public speaking and creative writing. So, for example, in standard creative writing, this is under the assumption that all students already have like the writing foundation. They have all of the necessary vocabulary in order to produce their written work. And so if you think of it like the bricks and mortar, the vocabulary being the bricks. However, how that's a little bit different from sheltered creative writing, this is something we can't assume anything. So we're going to be teaching that vocabulary first in order for students to then proceed to the next part of an activity. So a learning target, students will be able to match aspects of a plot in a children's story in multiple languages. And then moving on to public speaking standards.
And so I'll just mention really quick, so, and with this standard, our students, when they went to Countryside, were able to present their books in English, Spanish, Ukrainian, Russian. So it was really exciting because we partnered with our dual language immersion school there. And it was a lot of fun for the little kids to see the big kids and just being validated in all of the languages. So yeah, here's speech.
And then with speech, once again, with a standard speech class, the teachers are going to assume that all of the language is there for them to then move on to a more polished speech, and we're not focusing so much on the vocabulary. Whereas in the sheltered class, we need to teach the language first. So, for example, one of our learning targets would be to first learn imperative verbs, and then the sequence. So let me back up. If you're giving like an instructional or a how-to speech, learning those imperative verbs, and then moving on to the sequencing words to be able to put those imperative verbs in place. Whereas in a standard speech class, that would already be understood. We're going to just go right into the speech.
And then we're going to talk about who our students are, our amazing students. Vicente's in this photo up there. Do you want to share a little bit about why, what you like about our class and why it's important to you?
Yeah. Okay. This class for me is important because you can speak your native language and practice your English. Also, I like this class because it has a lot of cultural diversity,
Thank you.
and the both teachers are really good.
We didn't say him. Do you want to say anything in Spanish?
Ok. Bueno, complementando lo que decía en inglés, me gusta mucho esta clase porque es un espacio donde puedo compartir con mis amigos de otros países y puedo saber más sobre distintas culturas que hay en el mundo. Y ambas profesoras son muy buenas y divertidas a la vez. Hacer la clase divertida.
Gracias.
Eso.
Thank you. Thank you. And we included additional student quotes that they shared today. Some of our kids said, again, writing in their home language first, then moving into English. I feel safe in this class because I learn more English and I can say my ideas and thoughts. This class is special for me because always we do different activities and we learn of different forms. I think in this class also practice our home language and English. Both languages have equal importance.
And then I like this class because I can practice my English with confidence.
And one more. Can I do one?
Yeah. And then Juan said today, this class is important for me because learn more English is special for the activities we do because it is different to all. Because the teacher teach all people. I'm feeling good in this class with all people.
And these were some pictures from our day at Countryside. There's Kate. There's Marcos. We just felt this is one of our favorite things that's happened this year, this class. So anyway, thank you for inviting us to be a part of your meeting. I think that's the end.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bohr. Thank you, Ms. Schutz, and thank you, Vicente. All right, this evening we have no members of the public here to address us, so we will continue on with our consent agenda. Is there anything anyone would like to remove from the consent agenda? Okay, we will now vote to approve the consent agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor of approving the consent agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? The consent agenda has been approved. We are now moving on to our discussion items. Our first item is our achievement and integration. Should we move? Okay. I will talk slow. Our first item for discussion is our achievement and integration fiscal year 2026 budget. We had you booked back to back there. Thank you for facilitating, bringing them here. And our speaker tonight to talk to us about our achievement and integration budget is Dr. Franny Becker, our director of partner programming. Welcome.
There we go. All right. So, good evening, Board, Director Gabler, Dr. Sandley, and presenting the Achievement and Integration Budget. So, with the Achievement and Integration Budget, we have 3-year Achievement and Integration goals. So, and we are on year 2 of our Achievement and Integration goals. With the Achievement and Integration goals, you have a budget that needs to be updated yearly. And so we are presenting the yearly updated budget. The budget needs to match your achievement and integration goals. So when you look at the budget, each line item needs to be directly related back to a goal and strategy that support the achievement and integration plan. And within the achievement and integration plan, you have parameters that MDE sets for you on how much must be spent on direct student contact, how much can be spent on professional development, and how much can be spent on admin. So 80% must be spent on direct student contact time, and then the rest can be divided between admin and professional development. With that, there are no significant changes to the achievement and integration budget. The updates that were made with Mert Witter, Director of Finance, were with the new contracts for teachers. We updated salaries for teachers from last year's plan, and then there was an adjustment of FTE for cultural liaisons, but that amount of money stayed within that goal area, so it didn't change to support another goal area. Any questions?
Board members, any questions? Director.
I don't have a question, but I just wanted to say I appreciate the intentional alignment of this plan to our strategic plan and our goals for all students and aligning it to where students might need support from an intervention perspective. And I just appreciate the intentionality of the work that you're doing. That's all.
Thank you. I thank the board because it is having the data metrics plan, which came from a vision from the board, helped to really align the achievement and integration plan with the strategic plan, because we can lean right into those metrics points that we are monitoring as a district.
All right, thank you, Dr. Becker.
Thank you.
Next up on our agenda is our elementary literacy curriculum adoption recommendations. And we have Assistant Director of Teaching and Learning, Bethany Van Ostel, and Jody D. St. Hubert, our Director of Teaching and Learning here. Welcome.
Hi, good evening.
Director Gable, Dr. Stanley, and board members, good evening. It's nice to see you. Thanks for giving me the opportunity to come before you and share about this exciting next step in our literacy journey. As you well know, we've been working diligently on the comprehensive literacy plan since I came on board 4 years ago, and this is just an exciting next evolution of where we are in this journey. Back in 2016, I believe, was when we last adopted materials or a curriculum for reading and writing instruction. And so a lot's happened since 2016, as we well know. We've endured a global pandemic, distance learning, the new science of reading research that has come out, all of our letters learning. And so what's really exciting about this is not only is it time because we have new standards coming out, but we are more than ready to get new materials in the hands of our teachers. We've been working so hard on the science of reading learning through letters, through Aspire. We have over 300 teachers that have been engaged in this now for 3 years. Many are ready to complete their learning this summer. And, you know, I think, I'm hoping I'm quoting, it's Maya Angelou, I believe, who says, when you know better, you do better. And our teachers know better now. Not to say anything was wrong with our old program, but it was copyrighted back in 2016, and now we are ready to advance. They have all this knowledge, and they are ready to have tools that support them as the vehicle to get that instruction more fluid so that they have that at their fingertips. So all of that said, our team has been working for the past 4 years. They began an exploration, and they looked at our current materials, and they were, you know, beginning their letters journey, and they were starting to see what gaps existed and what needs we had, and they were comparing that and laying that side by side with our student data and looking at our FastBridge data and seeing the needs that we had in, you know, phonemic awareness and phonics and fluency, and they've been doing an amazing job, and our data shows that with what they have, so I'm so excited to see what they can do with updated materials. Benchmark Advance and Benchmark Adelante are the programs that they landed on after probably a solid year. They started looking at 6 programs. They weeded it down to 3 programs. There was a lengthy process where the materials went out to all staff in every building for a viewing period, and they were provided feedback. So it's been a really solid process with some dedicated, tenacious, and really, really committed teachers. It's so fun to work with them. I just can't say enough. So Benchmark, you know, I don't want to go too long here, but I just want to highlight some of the really key things that are so exciting about this program. There are scaffolds in every single lesson, and so that supports the teachers real time when they might need to support students and they have levels of scaffolds. And so that's exciting. It's something that supports them right on the fly when they need to adjust or differentiate, like I said, real time. The systematic and explicit phonics, the foundational skill lessons, we currently have a program that addresses that for K2. We now will have that K5. And that is one of the biggest things that our teachers, especially in grades 3, 4, 5, are appreciating about this program. They knew that they know that they've needed it and they haven't had it. Imagine how frustrating that is, right? And so now they are seeing this and getting very excited. We have some early implementers that are just loving it. Some feedback from 5th grade is amazing from teachers and kids. The rigorous writing, right now our teachers are wrestling with that a little bit. The writing is hard and they are loving it, but it's hard and that's great. So they're seeing the opportunities to really push our students in writing, which we've needed for a while. The other neat thing, and I just brought a few examples, is it's a knowledge building curriculum, so it's really strong when you think about, these are just some 3rd grade units. So the units are knowledge building and they have 3 science units, 3 social studies units, and 3 literary units. Each of them are 3 weeks long and they're K5. So this is an example, I think this is unit 5, but there's a technology unit. And so grades K through 5, obviously all at different levels, are all engaging in knowledge building around technology. This one happens to be a literary unit around characters, some life science around animal adaptation. So in one way or another, all of the K5
students at the same time are building knowledge around the same topic. And so I get excited, and I'm sending texts to our digital learning coordinator and Mark around STEAM of all the opportunities that we have with this now. But this is material that they get to actually hold in their hands, and they get to annotate and write all over it. And it's just really, really cool to see them bring their thinking to life on this when we're in classrooms. The other neat thing is the bridge to our middle school program. Same type of activities with the annotating and the explicit vocab that I'm seeing some strong bridging there, which will be really great for our 5th grade as they move into 6th grade. I'm almost done, I promise. There are inquiry projects with every single unit, and so again, they can continue to take that knowledge deeper. And I think at the end of the day, just working with our teacher team, they are just finding that it is, it's new, first of all, so it's not, they say, we all feel like new teachers, right? Well, that's something that we have to sit with and work through, but they are doing such an amazing job, and they're already seeing so many great things from their students. Their students are engaged. Their students are performing better than they have been in many situations. Like I said, with the writing, they're seeing writing come to life that they didn't know that they could be pushing that level of rigor. And so I'll wrap it up here, but we're just really excited about this opportunity. I don't know if you wanted to add anything, but I'll stop there and open for questions.
Board members, any questions? Director Barry?
Could you talk briefly on how this program fits into our dual language and also the talent development programs in our elementary schools?
Yes, I will speak first to dual language. I'm going to speak that separately, right? So the dual language, Spanish dual language, there is a complementary program that's called Benchmark Adelante, and that's a really, I'm going to say, seamless. It is just a complete marriage. It's intended for dual language programs. The PD has been really intentional with helping, I shouldn't say just the PD, the resources intentionally bridge and are even color-coded, and this is the content you teach in English, this is the content you teach in Spanish, so it's really seamless. They're, of course, not French immersion programs. We wrestle with that all the time. And so we just had a meeting, Jody, Sandy, Connie, and Chris and I met. We have 2 early implementers at Normandale. It is not seamless, and it's doable, but we're working through what that looks like. And so, like I think I had in the report, there might be a longer on-ramp for that. We know that they will get the materials. We know that they're going to start using them next year. We are trying right now to figure out how that looks so that we maintain the integrity of the Normandale mission and that immersion program, because we know how special that is, but also implementing this program. And so we definitely do not have the answers yet for exactly how that's going to look, but every time we meet, we're getting further and further. The teachers have been super invaluable with helping us with that. So I will continue to bring updates if needed around that as that work unfolds. And talent development, also similarly, they are working through right now. We have a couple of teachers that are piloting the program alongside their colleagues that are early implementers, and they are working through. So prior to this program, we had a distinctly separate reading and writing program, and so it was easier for talent development to hone in and say, we're just going to take and teach the reading. We can no longer do that because in this program, as research supports, which we're really grateful for, the reading and writing is intertwined. And so we can't just pull students away from a portion of it. So we're figuring out how to use the materials with the talent development pedagogy so that we know that they're getting the rigor. Again, not ironed out yet, but that's this year's installation. So that's what this year is for. And so what I'm confident in is the ideas on the table and the teachers that are trying it out. We have a team meeting on February 13th where they're going to present their ideas, and we're going to have that discussion with the teachers. So again, similar to French, I'm super optimistic, and I know we're going to get there, but we're still just in installation figuring it out. Yep. And Deb Richards has been amazing in helping with that too, so I just want to give her a shout out.
Board member, Director Mann.
Can I just have a follow-up on French immersion and Spanish dual language? So French immersion is going to have kind of a lead-up. Would Spanish dual language be ready for that implementation next year, first day, or how does that kind of, what does that kind of look like as far as
We have
timeline?
second grade implementing it right now, and so they are working through that closely with our literacy coach, Sandra Harley, and working through that, so receiving PD along with the teachers that are early implementers. I look over to Franny, I'm not sure if K1 is going to start next year exactly, but obviously as we roll in the next grade level, they will just roll in right up with that. So, yep.
Director Ehlenberg.
Could you explain for more the community, we've been talking about the literacy plan for so long, and the resources that we've put towards the literacy plan, how this intersects with the literacy plan we've been working on, and specifically the difference between Tier 1 instruction and how this will be utilized for Tier 1 instruction, and then where some of those other resources kick in?
Yeah, great question. This is a Tier 1 resource. So back to the Comprehensive Literacy Plan, MTSS is an essential component of our Comprehensive Literacy Plan, and that's our tiers of support. Tier 1 is how we would define what all students receive. All students receive, this is where our grade level standards are embedded into. There's differentiation within Tier 1, of course, so it's not necessarily all exactly the same, but this is where students engage. Typically 90 minutes to 120 minutes at elementary is usually the literacy block, not necessarily all in one cohesive, chunk of time, but that's the time dedicated to just kind of think about that. Students who might be showing up on our universal screeners needing some additional support would receive a Tier 2 intervention. And that's, again, you think about another block of time, maybe an additional 30 minutes. 20 to 30 minutes. And usually in elementary, that's during the win time, that what I need time. So that's in addition to that 120 minutes, 90 to 120 minutes that I just explained. So this resource is specifically going to fill the instructional needs for the Tier 1 block of time, so that all students receiving no pullouts during that time, all students receive that grade level instruction. So the Comprehensive Literacy Plan laid out additional materials. Sunday is an example that was part of that plan. We rolled that out, and that is very specifically going to be for that intervention component. That could be Tier 2, it could even be Tier 3. Tier 3 is just more intensified than a Tier 2 for students that might need additional support beyond just that Tier 2. And there are times when some of the materials might, like within Benchmark, there are intervention supports within that. So it's not to say exclusively only. There might be times when this resource is really beneficial for students in an intervention setting. But this specifically is that whole group and small group classroom time that all students receive. Did I get that? Okay.
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
I have one question. So I noticed, so just so the public, we had a chance to see this report in our work session and ask some questions, and now it's here tonight for further discussion, and then we will be voting on it March 3rd. And I also noticed that Benchmark Advance is in the re-review cycle for curriculums with MDE, and that's due around March 3rd. Are you getting the read from them that it sounds like our staff loves it and is really having success with it? Are you hearing anything about what happens if, or have thought about what happens if they don't approve this as one of their chosen curriculum? Does that mean anything to us, or does that not necessarily change anything for us?
So I'll answer and then I'll let you add on if anything. Our team did an incredibly thorough review with extensive knowledge, right? These teachers are incredibly well-trained, and they literally turned over every stone. And so the process that they went through, I am so confident that we landed on the right materials. We did spend a significant amount of time with the company and with the rep understanding, why was Benchmark not approved the first round? To sum it up, the majority of the reason was because of the way that they had described their small group texts. And they came out with, I want to say it was 20 pages or so, going through item by item around what the response was from MDE and how they are understanding that to be aligned to the science of reading, refuting it, not to say, I don't know if I'm saying that in the right way. And so after we reviewed that, I brought that to Jody, we kind of kept coming back and saying, is this something we still want to keep on the table? We felt really confident that we did want to keep it on the table. Now, what MDE decides or not, we are so, and we use the same rubric that they're using. We've really done our due diligence. It is an unknown, and so it's not something that I can necessarily predict, but I feel really confident that it's going to get a good rating. If it doesn't, I don't feel like that changes any bit of my passion around the program or the team's decision.
So we can still move forward with it. It doesn't mean it's off the table, right? Okay, that's what I wasn't clear about. So just from my own understanding of how they put this list of curriculums together. So, and I know that was a little bit
It's
not
been kind of a
controversial.
moving target
Yeah.
for a while, and the way that they're doing it now is there's like levels of, you know, and I can't retrieve the language right now, but how it's either completely not aligned, which I know it will not fall in that category. It could be partial.
Okay.
I don't know if I'm using the right language, but.
No, that's all I needed to know. I just was concerned if they come back and say it's not, that puts a halt to everything. And it sounds like this is a great fit for us.
Yes.
And regardless of what they say, this is a great fit for us and is going to be,
Yeah.
when approved, our next curriculum. So thank you for that
feel
clarity.
Wholeheartedly confident in that, yep.
Okay. Board members, any other further questions? All right, thank you both.
All right, thank you. We'll see you in a month or so.
Next up is our academic calendars, 2026-27 and 2027-2028. And we have Assistant Superintendent Nate Swenson and Executive Director of Human Resources, Sonia Saylor, here to talk to us about calendars. Welcome.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board, and Dr. Stanley. Sonia and I are here to present the work and recommendations of the Calendar Committee. The committee has thoughtfully designed the academic calendar to maximize instruction while accommodating key breaks and professional development needs. You'll notice the calendar prioritizes educational continuity by maintaining full weeks of instruction and aligning non-student days with cultural observances when possible. Student breaks are strategically distributed throughout the year, including MEA, Thanksgiving, a 2-week winter break, and spring break, with careful attention given to balancing semester lengths and maintaining consistent weekly learning schedules. This structure aims to support both student learning and staff professional development while respecting community preferences and needs. We'd like to extend our sincere gratitude to our dedicated calendar committee comprised of staff members and parents for their thoughtful work in developing a calendar that serves our entire school community. So at this time, Sonia is going to review some of the highlights from the proposed calendars.
Great, thank you. Chair Gabler, Dr. Stanley, members of the school board. So just going to hit some of the highlights, all of that we also talked about at our work session, but just to ensure that we do cover the same highlights that we did at the work session. So we have 2 academic calendars, the 26-27 and 27-28 for your review this evening. Both begin the week before Labor Day to accommodate the best summer construction schedule. We, over the course of the next 6 years, we still anticipate having more than $8 million worth of construction projects. And therefore, having that additional time in the summer is very helpful for our school district's buildings and grounds department. Both of the academic calendars can contain 2 connect and assess days for our E5 programming before the first day with students. The connect and assess days, just like we did this year in 24-25, will actually occur the Friday of workshop week and the Monday of the following week, with Tuesday available for teachers to review the data from those 2 dates, and then with our E5 schedule starting on Wednesday of the first week of school. Our 6-12 programs will start on the Monday. Both contain 3 teacher data days, the day after semester 1, the day after the last student day of the year, and then 1 floater day, which occurs either in August or in June, depending on the building's preference. Both provide a 2-day MEA break, a 3-day Thanksgiving break, a 2-week winter break, and a 1-week spring break, all that align with the traditions of Edina Public Schools. Both closely balance semesters 1 and 2 with the 26-27 calendar having 84 days in semester 1 and the 27-28, 85 days in semester 1. Both contain no student days on the November general election day. And in 27-28, there is a primary election day in March 7th, 2028. And in the best interest of student safety, that date has been used as one of our non-student days. As we have discussed, in most cases, non-student days are placed at the beginning or the end of a week to provide the best educational continuity for students. Where we can, such as on election days, we place a student, a non-student day on midweek days, which also helps us, where possible, to attempt to balance our student support services schedules so that they don't all fall on Mondays or Fridays. Both calendars contain one PD day in early fall. In the first year of the calendar, that will be held on September 21st, 2026, which also happens to be Yom Kippur, and will assist our students of the Jewish faith in being able to celebrate that with their families. In the second year, that day will be on October 1st, 2027, which is on a Friday, but it happens to be the Friday before Rosh Hashanah. This aligns with the guiding change document from the school board, where we took great care to be sensitive to the cultures within our community, and of course within our strategic plan initiative B3 to support equity by identifying and eliminating structured barriers to success. Both contain no student days on the Tuesday attached to President's Day in February, which is also historically a PD day in Edina Public Schools. And both have the last student days falling on the Friday of the week that begins with Memorial Day. So those are the highlights of the two academic calendars before you this evening. Are there any questions?
I don't see any questions. I do want to thank both of you. This is a hot topic. When we go out to PTOs, they are very interested in knowing when spring break's going to be, when school's going to start. So it's always really helpful to hear all the thought that goes into this and the team that works on that, using that guiding change document, that really there's a rhyme or reason for why it ends up, and it's a lot of work to make it all put it all together. So I want to thank both of you, and then this will come forward for action in March. All right, thank you.
Great, thank you.
Okay, next up, I'm going to turn it over to Vice Chair Allenberg, and she is going to take us through some policy review.
Yes, we have quite a few policies to go through this evening. And before we talk about specific policies, just for the community, I wanted to let everyone know for our review process, all of our policies are reviewed to make sure they're updated with federal and state law. With Minnesota School Board Association, their recommended best practices, legal counsel when needed, and then also feedback from appropriate stakeholders within our district. So Nate, I'm not sure if I have them in the exact order that you have them to review. So I don't know if I have 524 to start with, but if you have a different one you'd like to start with, then feel
That would be
free.
just fine with me.
Okay, so
Yeah.
we'll start with policy 524, which is our electronic technologies use policy. And this was updated with information about current practice, but I'll also turn it over to Assistant Superintendent Nate Swenson to give some more context around this policy.
Director Allenberg, members of the board, thank you. So as we just got done talking about in workshop, I'm bringing to you a recommendation to incorporate cell phone language into policy 524 without opening the entire policy for review, as it was recently reviewed last summer and is scheduled to review again this summer. And the proposed language formalizes our current school year practices, outlining separate protocols for K-8 and 9-12 students while maintaining flexibility for future modifications. In our research, most districts plan to integrate cell phone guidelines into existing policies rather than create standalone policies. It should be noted that MSBA just came out with their own policy last week for cell phones. And I would recommend that the board consider that as an option when 524 is reviewed fully again this summer. So with that, the language that is before you is what I'm recommending be adopted. What questions might you have?
Board members, are there any questions? And just for the community, we did talk about this in the work session earlier, where there were some comments about adding terminology around ensuring that it's written in policy that if there are needs for students that have learning differences or IEPs, to make sure that that's stated explicitly in policy, and that is going to be taken back to the policy committee to add to this particular policy. But are there other questions or comments for Nate or the policy committee about this policy 524? Okay, thank you. Moving on to policy 623, which is super summer school instruction. And this was updated with current vernacular that's being used in the school district right now and a couple of updated protocols. Oh, Nate, I thought I had you for all of the ones that you're working on. Oh, sorry, Anne Marie, we're gonna skip you for now. I was so excited to have it in the right order, and I didn't do it, sorry. So we'll move to 513.
Perfect.
Okay.
Perfect.
Student promotion, acceleration, and retention. This was updated with current vernacular and protocols that we're using in the district right now. Assistant Superintendent Swinson.
Yeah, the only thing that I would add to that is it was reviewed by principals, our talent development team, teaching and learning, and cabinet. And the only substantive change that was made is that in the early learning or early kindergarten admission part, we added the director of teaching and learning to the team that would consult around those considerations. Other than that, the language is largely unchanged.
Board members, do you have questions or comments?
I do.
Oh, sorry, Director Gabler.
Yes, I just had one little thing on page 6 under decision-making team. I noticed that we still had it listed as gifted talented coordinator, but above it's talent development, so it was just a small little, so that's on page 6. And then I had a question about, on page 7, when we talked about middle schoolers who might need to be taking classes at the high school. You know, sometimes we have accelerated tracks, and so we have a whole class of them, so they stay at the middle school and they're taught by a middle school teacher. Valley View is right, I'm assuming it's just a couple students maybe every year that this is happening for, and Valley View, of course, is right next to the high school. When we do have that for like a Southview student, do we provide transportation for those students, and should that be mentioned at any point in there?
Jody D., do you happen to know that if we provide transportation from Southview to the high school? I'd assume yes, but maybe not. We don't. Okay.
So it's really parent-specific? Okay, that's good to know, because that, if we're seeing that that's a barrier. Okay. Okay, okay, well, thank you for that, and maybe, yeah. if
Thank you,
it's-
Jody.
So, okay, those were my questions.
Thank you. Moving on to student assignment to teachers during, or student assignment to teachers, which is policy 619.
Yes. So this may be one of the shortest policies that we have. This was reviewed by principals, and the change that is being recommended for this policy is regarding requests made for specific teachers. As principals reviewed this document, that is something that they felt pretty strongly about, including that we would not accommodate specific teacher requests for a variety of reasons. And so beyond that language change, there are no other substantive changes.
Any questions?
Just a clarification. So in current practice, given that that one sentence is not in policy today, our practice has been not to accommodate that, but now we're explicitly putting it in policy. I just want to be clear about that. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. And then I'm going to move on to 617, which is about class size and staffing. And this, I believe, is a combination of Assistant Superintendent, Swenson and, Executive Director Sonia Saylor. It's too many people in too many different orders, so.
Chair Gabler, Dr. Stanley, members of the school board, Assistant Superintendent Nate Swenson and I have reviewed Policy 617, class size guidelines and teacher staffing, and are here tonight to make some suggestions for some proposed modifications to this policy. The proposed modifications we're making are not very few substantive in nature. Largely, they're made to aid the reader and align with our current practices within the school district. For example, in Section 2, General Statement of Policy, we are suggesting that the first line be stricken, which is also came as a conversation by Director Allenberg during our policy committee meeting, which specifically talks about the procedures, the staffing procedures being established by the school board. The procedures are actually established by Superintendent Stanley, HR, Finance, our building leaders, but our procedures are based on the class size guidelines, which are, of course, established by the school board. So that was one change to align with our current practices. We're also suggesting that under the definitions section, Section 3, the non-resident upward limit, that definition be removed as that language is not contained anywhere within the policy. And then finally, we are proposing that an appendix be added to this policy specifically to aid the reader in our community to easily find our class size guidelines. As you know, every fall, Assistant Superintendent Swenson brings an enrollment and class size report to the board. However, if you don't hit exactly that day, looking back into the archives each year, it can be hard to find those class size guidelines just on the other 11 months of the year. And so we're proposing that we add those guidelines as an appendix just to aid our readers and really just for transparency. So with that said, are there any questions?
Board members, are there questions? Director Gabler?
Yes, I have a curiosity question, and then I wanted to really thank you and the policy committee for adding that appendix. Exactly how you described it, that is a question we will get about class sizes, and I am always like, what board meeting was that? Because it's not easy to find, it's not on our website. And so I really appreciate the team adding that, even for our purposes too. So thanks for that. And then my question was around I'm curious around the word teacher staffing in the policy. So that's been added, because as I was reading it, it fits in most places, but then I was thinking, well, it used to say staffing, which in my mind I'm thinking, okay, like para support. How do we decide when to add para support in certain situations? And what tripped me up is under the general statement of policy, the second paragraph. Class size and teacher staffing may vary depending on the subject being taught, objectives to be learned, okay, great, approach of the instruction, great, age or need of the students being taught. So like, for example, in CP or in kindergarten, they also have additional, like a instructional assistant, I think they're referred to. And
That is
so
correct.
that's what tripped me up. But in general, can you talk why that word teacher was added versus just leaving it as staffing?
Well, because, so the recommendation to add the word teacher is because everything in this policy really surrounds teacher staffing. But you're absolutely correct, Chair Gabler, that we do have paraprofessional support within our kindergarten classrooms. We also have paraprofessional support within our continuous progress, our CP classrooms, specifically because of the fact that we have multi-age students and higher class sizes, as shown in the appendix as well, that our multi-age classrooms tend to run a little bit higher than our neighborhood classrooms as well. And so when reading through the policy, it just was clear that it was really all about teacher
Teachers.
staffing. So it seemed like it would just aid the reader to understand that that's really what is being discussed in this particular policy.
Okay, that makes sense to me. And we don't necessarily have, when it comes to, I'm assuming most of our para support is student-specific.
The vast majority of our para support is student-specific and through our
Special ed.
our Students Support Services program.
Okay.
Yes, other than kindergarten and our CP classrooms, really, there isn't added para support in most of our classrooms.
Okay, that makes sense. So thanks for explaining that.
Are there other questions or comments about this policy? Okay, thank you both.
Thank you.
Assistant Superintendent Swenson, I don't have you down for any more policies to review, but am I incorrect about that?
Jody Remsing and I shared policy 632.
Well, then we're going to move
Okay if we do that one?
to that one, policy 632. I don't know, oh, there we go. And we're going to welcome Director of Student Support, Jody Remsing, to review this policy with us.
So policy 632 is about chemical use and abuse. And just to begin, it was reviewed by principals, APs, health services, emergency management, and HR. For the most part, changes were largely around language cleanup, and more importantly, making sure that the language aligned with what our current practices are. So in a couple of spots, you will see language that has been struck that is language that just didn't align with what our current practices are.
Are there questions about this policy? Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Director Remsing.
I'll see if you have any questions.
Okay. All right. I have you up for one other policy, which was the change you made basically for me, which was 521, the Student Disability Non-Discrimination, under Section 504. And that was added because of the conversation that we had, making sure that parents and community members could find that there is policy that we have around 504 plans. And so that was changed. Nothing in the policy has changed, but that title has changed. Director Gabler.
Yes, I had a question about that. Hold on, let me find my question sheet. So I was wondering, because of that conversation, because it now has kind of two purposes, where it's student non-discrimination, anybody that has an IEP or a 504, but then it ends up being, I believe, our district's only policy that talks about 504, right?
Yes.
So it kind of serves two dual purposes, right?
Yeah, it talks about the non-discrimination protections that are in place under Section 504, and you're absolutely right. Those protections also apply to students on IEPs as well.
And I was wondering if, from a user standpoint, if it would be helpful for any parents, because it does talk about who is protected under the 504, if we, and this would be your decision, but if we would ever want to link this policy to our 504 page, or because it talks about it's the responsibility to identify and evaluate what their rights are, and I think, yeah, coordinator, persons who have questions, this is who you would reach out for. So that was just something, as we were thinking about making it more user-friendly, because it is hard to find information about 504s.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea to be able to link it to our page for additional information.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions or comments about this one? Okay, thank you, Director Remsing. I'm going to move on to Policy 604, which is grade level configuration, and invite up Director of Teaching and Learning, Jody D. St. Hubert.
Thank you, Director Allenberg. Policy 504 with grade level configuration just has a couple of updates to it. The first is in Section 3, grade level organization, and there was just a little bit added to both 1 and 2 as definitions that align with MSBA policy. And then I just wanted to note in Section 3 as well, under D, we made the update in making sure that Countryside Elementary School, the dual Spanish immersion was reflected as a choice program and noted when the continuous progress program on Countryside would be phasing out. Otherwise, it's just a little bit of editing and cross-referencing things that were added. Are there any questions?
And Director D. St. Hubert, can you speak to why we deleted the
Yes.
enrollment section?
Yes, I can. Thank you for pointing that out. So we also noted in the whole entire enrollment section that this policy, that really aligns more with the enrollment policy, and that it did not align with this policy. So all of that information is captured within enrollment information, and we just wanted to make sure that the purpose of this policy stayed true to the information within it.
Board members, do you have questions about Policy 604? Okay, thank you, Director D. St. Hubert.
Thank you.
And last but not least, Director of Community Education and Strategic Partnerships, Anne Marie Leland. I apologize for not knowing that you were doing this policy. We're going to talk about Policy 623, which is summer school instruction.
No problem. Thank you so much. Chair Gabler, school board directors, and Superintendent Stanley, Dr. Stanley. This 623 is a summation of all of the various programming that we offer in the summer. Some of it is credit recovery at the high school. Some of it is also extended school year, which is our special education programming and our targeted services programming for our elementary students. So just in overview, changes were made to really just shorten and make this more concise, put it in more practical terms of how we are working through the programming that we offer in the summer, and some of the instructional pieces and program components, I should say.
School board members, do you have any questions about this policy, Policy 623? Okay, thank you, Director Leland. Thank you, board members, for reviewing all of these policies, and also especially our administration. It's quite a few policies that we went through this month, so I appreciate everyone's work on those. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Policy Committee, you've been busy. All right, we will now move on to our action part of our meeting. Do I have a motion to approve the proposed 2024-2026 collective bargaining agreement between Independent School District 273 and the Service Employees International Union Local 284, representing building, grounds, and maintenance employees?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, we have Executive Director of Human Resources, Sonia Saylor, and Director of Finance and Operation, Mert Woodard, with us tonight to present this contract with us, to us.
Thank you, Chair Gabler, Dr. Stanley, members of the school board. Director Woodard and I are pleased to announce that our Service Employees International Union Local 284 buildings, grounds, and maintenance employees have ratified a tentative agreement that is before you this evening for a new 2-year collective bargaining agreement effective July 1, 2024, and extending through June 30th of 2026. Members of this bargaining unit include our district's custodians, our custodial specialists, our night leads, our groundskeepers, and our building repair employees. Our negotiation teams worked well together, worked collaboratively, and ended with a result that both values the important work that they do in our school district, perform each and every day in our school district, and the school board's financial parameters. Financial highlights of the proposed agreement include step advancement for eligible employees in both years of the agreement, a 7% hourly wage increase in the first year, and a 2.8% increase in the second year. There's an increase to the school district's monthly contribution towards health insurance beginning January 1, 2025. The increase will be $73.57 for single plans, $24.60 for single plus one plans, and $25.43 for family plans. An increase of $17 per month to the monthly differential for employees who hold first-class boiler licenses, and a $27 per month increase for holders of the chief boiler license. And then there was a change to the years of service requirement for earning and vacation, which will enable our custodial employees to access leave earlier in their careers with our school district. The 2-year total package for this proposed agreement is $9,431,256, which represents an increase of $698,145. Under the MSBA's costing model, the 2-year percentage is 7.99%, which is within the authority provided to the school district's negotiations team by the school board. And as a result, we seek your approval for the agreement.
Board members, do you have any questions about this agreement? Dr. Birdman.
I just have one. The average tenure of people in this particular bargaining group, has it been pretty stable? It's not a group that we see a lot of turnover in, or is it something that we have a higher level of turnover in at this point?
Since we've become more competitive with our wages, we've definitely slowed down drastically in our turnover with this unit. Because the custodial staff, there's always some turnover
Sure.
within the custodial staff, but it is not significant at this point. And our building repair staff, our night lead staff, actually we have a lot of staff members with an extended tenure in our school district.
Excellent, thank you.
All right, we will now vote to approve the proposed 2024-2026 collective bargaining agreement between Independent School District 273 and the Service Employees International Union Local 284, representing building, grounds, and maintenance employees. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the proposed 24-26 collective bargaining agreement is approved. And I want to thank you both for your work on this, and I also want to thank the buildings, grounds, and maintenance employees that serve our district so well. We are really fortunate to have such a top-notch crew. So please pass that along to them from the board. Thanks. All right, do I have a motion to approve policies 514, 520, and 526?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Policy Chair Ellenberg, is there anything you want to mention about these policies?
No, these were reviewed by the board last month as discussion items, and that there have been no changes to them. They're policy 514, which is bullying prohibition, 520, student surveys, and 526, which is student hazing prohibition. Are there questions about any of the policies or comments before they're voted on? Okay.
All those in favor of approving policies 514, 520, and 526, say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Policies 514, 520, and 526 are approved. Do I have a motion to approve the mutual termination of employment agreement between Edina Public Schools and Dr. Stacy Stanley?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Vice Chair Ellenberg, would you walk us through this agreement and kind of the background around it?
Sure. For the community and board members and anyone that's watching, I was just going to walk us through how we got here and make sure there are no misconceptions about this agreement or just clarify exactly what's going on. So just as a reminder, on December 5th, St. Paul Public Schools announced that Dr. Stanley was going to be a finalist for the role of superintendent. I probably thought she was going to be chosen just because I know how talented she is. But on December 19th, St. Paul Public Schools named her as their choice for superintendent pending contract negotiations. At that point, the board sent a communication to the community regarding this. And then around the middle of January, Dr. Stanley had informed the governance committee that she was working with St. Paul with her contracts and that she would be seeking an end date around the middle of April. And when the governance committee was given this information, we took this information to the board at the January 20th work session, the board and community. And we presented the board and community with a plan to hire an interim superintendent to start around the middle of April, which was around the date that Dr. Stanley had mentioned being interested in leaving, and then would continue through the end of the 2025-2026 school year. At this January 20th work session, we discussed that the governance committee would be working on a mutual termination agreement with Dr. Stanley, and that ideally it would be brought to this work session for the board to vote on. I'd like to address why it's a mutual termination agreement and then the timing of the mutual termination agreement. The reason the board and Dr. Stanley are entering into a mutual termination agreement is because Dr. Stanley is leaving her contract with Edina Public School early, and in her current contract, it states that she can leave her contract early through a mutual termination agreement. Based in layman's terms, it's legalese for leaving a contract early. So I want to make sure that people understand, sometimes you hear the word termination, it sounds confusing or more than what it is, and it's simply an agreement that we're working together to agree on a date and that she will be leaving her contract early. So I want to make sure everyone understands what we're voting on tonight. And then the date of April 18th has been mutually agreed upon by Dr. Stanley and the governance committee, and we're asking for approval from the full board. And this date was the expressed desire of Dr. Stanley to leave in the middle of April, and then the date of the 18th gives the board plenty of time to hire an interim superintendent, and also time for there to be overlap between the interim superintendent and Dr. Stanley for transitional purposes. This also gives the interim superintendent some time to get up to speed on our district before summer planning for the 2025-2026 school year. I empathize with our fellow board members because I know it's hard to see a contract, not be involved in everything that's going on behind the scenes. So I just wanted to first of all acknowledge that, but reassure you that if there's trepidation about voting on this or the date that's on there, from a hiring process perspective, without this agreement in place and without a transition date locked in place, it makes it very difficult to publicize a job and a job description and attract individuals to send their resume to us without actually having a termination agreement in place and a tangible date that someone's going to start, especially since we're asking people to send publicly available data. it's a challenging situation, and it's a chicken and egg sort of situation where it's really hard to navigate this, and so this is the best of a challenging process that I just want to make clear for everybody. And then I also wanted to assure people that the governance team is confident, based on the number of inquiries we've received from qualified and talented individuals, that we will not have an issue hiring an interim and a permanent superintendent. I would like to address Dr. Stanley and tell you that this MTA is a bittersweet agenda item for me. I have much admiration and thanks to you for the work you've done for our district. And I just wanted to say that. So with that long background information, the governance team wanted to make sure that we addressed questions or concerns board members had before we vote on this.
Board members, Director Birdman.
The one thing that I didn't see in the agreement was anything that explicitly calls out an expectation of the transition plan for before Dr. Stanley as our current superintendent and the interim person that we would then hire, that what is the process, what is the timing, and what is the obligation in order to be part of that release, what is actually going to take place in doing that. It's not that I don't doubt that that will happen, it's more of, I'm not thinking about Dr. Stanley at this time. I'm thinking about for anything we do in the future, that getting out of a contract, there's a certain obligation to do certain kind of things in order to make that happen so that EPS gets what it needs in order to move forward. So if that's something that's already been discussed, but it's not in the agreement, I just need a kind of a thumbs up from the people that are participating that you've covered that part. If that's not been covered, then to assuage any concerns that I have, is that I want to make sure that when we get an interim person, that there's enough time between that interim person and Dr. Stanley, so all the institutional knowledge, there's a smooth transition from that standpoint. That's not in this agreement, and that bothers me. So I'm not explicitly asking for something here, but I just want to make sure that that's a covered base. So if anyone could assuage my concerns around that, I would appreciate it.
Do you want me to answer that? Or that absolutely has been talked about, and it was talked about with Trevor, who's legal counsel. That is a non-standard part of any superintendent contract and a mutual termination agreement that he highly recommended that is not put in there. So it's absolutely been a part of discussions, acknowledgement that transition planning is important, the sharing of information, but these agreements are, the key is making sure that it's about the contract, the date, and as a board or team on the back end, making sure that we're holding Dr. Stanley and ourselves accountable for transition planning. He's like, you run a real risk of getting tied up in semantics over what does it mean to do X, Y, and Z and things like that. And he just recommended I wouldn't even try to go there with this type of agreement, or when you are actually negotiating for a superintendent contract, that's not part of that plan. Now, in the future, if we do want to have that, I think we can entertain discussions about that, but that was just the advice given us from legal counsel.
That's fine. I'm not looking to have like a long dissertation of what those things were. I think it's more of, the protection for EPS is making sure that the talent that we have that is leaving, that we're making sure that we have the ability to extract the information that's necessary in order to keep it moving forward now that we're going to have that. So I just wanted to be on record to say that's a critical element. And I have all the faith and trust in Dr. Stanley that she's not going to leave us in the lurch and so on and so forth. But I just want to make sure you heard from me that that's critically critical from my standpoint. And if you're telling me at the governance committee, because you have more information on the process than I do, which is what you've acknowledged earlier, that we are comfortable with that we're going to get an interim person, that the transition time from when we hire a new interim person before April 18th, there will be sufficient amount of time and availability that will get that sort of transition to be made. And if both of you or all of you are saying, yes, we're good with that, then I'm good. I just wanted to make sure I got that base covered. Is there any reason that I should believe that it won't be done?
I would say no. I would say no. It's, you know, under performance of duties in the MTA, I would feel that that's part of the, under the performance of duties clause in that provision, so.
Okay. Do you have any issues with that, Dr. Stanley?
No, and we've been talking about transitions and what that would look like. We actually talk about that during our agenda setting time. And, you know, what I will say, I really appreciate, Michael, you bringing that up. I love Edina, and I'm going to make certain that Edina is left in the best place that it can possibly be so that the next leader, interim leader, and then permanent leader is in the position to just continue the great work of our strategic plan and to ascertain that my cabinet is well positioned as well.
Yeah, I mean, and again, I'm not suggesting that that was in doubt. I just wanted to make sure when I look at a legal contract, that's what I'm used to in terms of my profession and so on and so forth, looking at that. So I appreciate that. And then I think I would just echo what Erica said in terms of, I know that you're leaving us is not meant to be hurtful to us or to whatever you want to leave your legacy here at Edina, which is a wonderful legacy in the best hands possible, and that you're committed to that. So again, anyone in the community who has questions about this and so on and so forth, there's no doubt from my mind about what that's going to be. And we want to make this transition as perfectly as smooth as possible so that you can start your new endeavor in the best frame of mind to go from that standpoint. So hopefully with the cabinet, what we do from the governance committee on the interim hire, we'll get there. It's just sort of, it is a little bit bittersweet that we know that we're going to be here. We knew we were talking about this, but I just want to make sure we covered that. So thank you.
Cheryl.
I just wanted to say, Director Ehlenberg, I appreciate you walking through the timeline, because when I was looking at this item on the agenda, I was a little concerned about the order of operations, knowing that we're locking into the April 18th date, which I have confidence will be fine, but before we have an interim person in place and not sitting on the governance committee. I don't know what's happening behind the scenes, so that's a little difficult, and I'm not a person who enjoys uncertainty when it comes to, you know, major decisions, but I appreciate knowing that there is a strategic reason that could be advantageous to us in finding an interim superintendent, voting on this in this order, because it feels backwards to me, but it makes sense legally, apparently.
Yeah, thank you for acknowledging that, Director Barry. And it is super challenging, and these are one of those times where I absolutely respect open meeting law and why we have it, but it makes it really, really hard as a group of 7 to have 3 people know a lot more detail. And it's, especially for things contractually, that when we end up hiring an interim and a superintendent, it will be a very similar uneasy feeling, because there is limited time that you have, and those traditionally come as just action items. And it's such a large decision that we're making and pivotal decision for the district. And being a board member when you're being asked to vote on something where you don't have all the background and don't know all the steps, that's why I wanted to acknowledge the unease and walk through as many steps as possible and explain as much as possible what was in it. So
I appreciate that, thank you.
And just to make a point of clarification for anyone who's paying attention, that's built in for the fact that we all can't be talking about it outside of a meeting. That because of open meeting law, that we're not able to have more than 3 people involved with those processes. I think that's important, even though most people have heard us say that before. It's important that that's why that's happening, and it is uncomfortable.
All right. Any other questions? All right. I want to thank you for those questions. And Vice Chair Ehlenberg, thank you for walking us through that process and giving the background. That was helpful. All right. We will now vote to approve the mutual termination of employment agreement between Edina Public Schools and Dr. Stacy Stanley. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The mutual termination of employment agreement between Edina Public Schools and Dr. Stacy Stanley is approved. All right. Do board members have any leadership or committee updates?
I think I would just tell everyone that I'm going to District 287 South Education Center in Richfield tomorrow for the Get on the Bus. This is something that's scheduled periodically throughout the year. I'll make sure you guys know about the other ones that are coming up as well. What's great about the South Education Center is that we ended up having actually quite a few Edina students that are actually going to school at the South Education Center. And they do a great program there, and so I'm looking forward to seeing the updates tomorrow. So thank you.
I have, oh, go ahead, Dan.
We had a LAC breakfast since the last meeting that went very well. We had, I think, our highest attendee count since I've been a part of it. And so we were excited for the engagement of the community as well as the legislators. Our next event is going to be in March when we have our day at the Capitol, assuming everything falls into place by then. So we will continue our efforts to try to advance our platform. But thank you for everybody in the community that took the time to attend.
Do we know what day at the Capitol is?
Yes, March 24th. I think you're right. March 24th. Yes, March 24th, Monday.
I want to thank the LAC committee. It was a great breakfast, well-attended, engaging conversation. So I have two updates. As Director Allenberg spoke about, just as an update on the superintendent search process from a timing standpoint, the job posting, including the leadership profile that the board has worked on based on the feedback or the governance committee has worked on based on the feedback that the entire board gave us, is set to be posted this Wednesday. And that posting will be on our district's website as well as on the Minnesota School Board Association website. That application will stay open until Friday, February 21st, after which time the governance committee will narrow down the applicant pool to a finalist or finalists based on the feedback that was given to us at the January 21st work session. And then at the last week in February is when the board can expect to interview the finalist or finalists, and we will have time to prepare for any interviews at our February 18th work session. And then at our March 3rd board meeting, we will set aside time to discuss and decide on who the board is interested in hiring for our interim superintendent. So that's a month from today. Daphne Edwards, our communication and marketing director, and her small but mighty team have been working on a page on our website and a link on our homepage that contains more information about the search if community members are interested. There will also be links to that part of the website in the Buzz, which is the district communications. And then we will, and so please reach out, board members, reach out to governance committee members if you have questions, and community members, please check out our superintendent search portion. So just wanted to relay that, and if you look at the work session document for the 21st of January, you will see a timeline. So we're still trucking along with the same timeline. Nothing has changed from that. So my second comment tonight, I just wanted to take a moment on behalf of the board to mention and pay respect to Willard Eichela, the longtime Edina hockey coach who passed away on January 20th at the age of 92. Willard was a Phi-Ed teacher at Southview Junior High, which is what it was called at the time, and was Edina's varsity hockey coach from 1958 until 1991, a whopping 33 years. During his time as coach, he made a tremendous impact on hundreds, possibly thousands of young lives. From what I understand, he was a very modest man, giving credit to the boys on the ice for the team's success. The co-author of his biography said, "Ike's humanity was what made him special. He was the real deal." So on behalf of Edina Public Schools, I wanted to thank Ike for all that he gave to our students and our community, but I also wanted to take this opportunity to thank all of our coaches, directors, and advisors, as well as their families, because it's a lot of weeknights and a lot of weekends away from their family, for giving to our students in so many ways and really enriching the Edina Public Schools experience. So, all right. Dr. Stanley, do you have any updates you'd like to share?
I do have a couple updates. We are starting our enhanced Berg community task force process tomorrow evening. And I just want to thank the community. We had over 150 interest forms that were submitted. And we will land with nearly 70 people that will serve on the committee. And Mert and I have been planning for that, and we are just really excited to start that. So just thank you to the community for, you know, what we always see in Edina, the deep interest in supporting us and supporting the schools. Also, I would like to share the last time that we were meeting, Mert shared that we had applied for an additional grant, and this grant for electric busing, and this grant allows us to stack funding. So we got the initial grant for funding, and this allows us to stack the funding to kind of make up the difference that we didn't have with the other grant. And I just want to give a shout out to Dr. Anne-Marie Leland for her amazing grant writing abilities, because we were awarded that grant. So bravo, Dr. Leland. The board actually approved moving forward with the purchase of the buses contingent upon us receiving that grant. And so excited to tell the community that, and our Project Earth students are so excited to know that we are moving forward. So was really glad to share that information with them. And then finally, we have new art that is displayed here in the boardroom, and it's from Countryside, Highlands, and Creek Valley, and showcases a variety of work, kindergartners through fifth graders. Artists such as Roy Lichtenstein and Jen Ariani and Andy Warhol were used as inspiration to explore different art techniques. Many of the projects also highlight students' knowledge of the elements of art and how lines and shape and color are used in creative ways. Exploring color theory of complementary color monsters and mixing values of blue for the winter moon helps students develop an understanding of these art concepts through fun and meaningful hands-on experience. So please enjoy the art here in the boardroom.
Thank you. All right, do I have a motion to adjourn our meeting?
So moved. Second.
We will vote to adjourn the meeting. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion is passed and the meeting has adjourned.